Namaste viewers and a very warm welcome to this episode of the Indian Lawyer Legal Tips. I wish all our viewers a very happy Diwali. And I bring to you a topic that would be of relevance to a number of us because at some point in our lives or the other, we have been defamed either in the social media, the print media, or the physical world. Undoubtedly, it's a very painful experience, but we have to know what are our rights and what are our remedies. Hence, we chose this topic, which is the law on defamation. Now, let us first understand what is defamation and what are its legal implications. Defamation is a legal concept that refers to any false statement made about an individual, a group, or an entity that tends to damage their reputation. This harm can occur through written, which is what is known as libel, or spoken, which is what is known as slander. Now, let us understand whether every statement made against us, even if it's derogatory, can be defamation. The answer is no. For defamation to be actionable, certain criteria must exist. The first is the statement must be false. Secondly, it must be communicated to a third party. And most importantly, thirdly, it should cause damage to the individual's reputation. Now, before we go any further, let us understand one basic concept. That is, what happens in civil law if we claim defamation? And what happens if we claim defamation under the criminal law? In civil law, if you're able to prove that you have been defamed, you would be entitled to a certain monetary compensation for the harm that has been caused to you. Whereas under criminal law, if you are able to satisfy the court that yes, the defamation has been there with the criminal intent, you will be entitled not only to get fines but also get the person who caused you to be defamed an imprisonment sentence. Earlier, I had mentioned the types of defamation, that is libel and slander. Now, let me pause a little and explain to you exactly what is libel. Libel is a defamation in a very permanent form, such as the written media or the printed statements or any visual form that is in the books, the newspapers, the photographs, and today, of course, also in the social media. Slander, on the other hand, is an oral defamation. It is typically very transient in nature and is always spoken. Hence, it will not have the same kind of effect as a libel would have. Now, let us understand what are the essential ingredients of civil defamation under the civil laws. The first is a false and defamatory statement that has been made. The statement must refer to the person who has filed the case, that is the plaintiff. The statement must be published or communicated to a third party. The statement must cause harm to the plaintiff's reputation, and the remedy in civil law must be of a monetary nature. Now, let us discuss the remedies in civil law. Now, obviously, if you've gone to a court of law, you will be seeking some remedy. Now, what are the remedies that you would get in a case for defamation under the civil laws? The first would obviously be damages. That is, it's a monetary compensation for the injury that has been caused to one's reputation. The damages can be compensatory for the actual harm or punitive, that is to punish the wrongdoer, or nominal, where the court is not satisfied that there has been a substantial harm done by the statements that have been made by the party who is defaming. The second remedy would be injunction. In some cases of defamation, we can ask the court to grant an injunction to prevent the publication or dissemination of the defamatory content in the coming times. There are times when a particular periodical or a particular paper has carried out some article on a person which is defamatory, and there is always a chance that these statements would be repeated over and over again in different periodicals. So, at such a point of time, you can definitely approach the court and say, I want an injunction restraining parties A, B, C, and D from publishing this particular content because it is defamatory and it is affecting my reputation. Now, let us look at things from the other side of the fence. What is the defense that a person who is accused of making defamatory statements can take? The first would be truth. That is, the defendant can prove that the statements he or she has made is true, and that would be a good defense. The second could be a fair comment. If the statement was made as a fair comment on a matter of public interest and made in good faith, it can be defended under this particular head. The third, of course, would be privilege. Now, there are two kinds of privileges, one which is known as absolute privilege and the other qualified privilege. Now, absolute privilege is statements made in certain situations, for instance, in a parliament or in judicial proceedings or by certain officials that are deemed to be protected. The second kind of privilege is what is known as qualified privilege. These are statements made in good faith and without any malice in certain situations, such as during an employer's references or media reports on public matters. These can be protected under qualified privilege. Now let us come to criminal defamation under the new law, that is the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita or BNS. Now, as per the BNS, there is a section 356. This section defines defamation as the act of harming the reputation of a person through statements, whether written, spoken, or otherwise, which may lower the person in the estimation of others or make the person the object of hatred, ridicule, or contempt. Section 356 of the BNS is reproduced on the screen for better understanding of our viewers. Many of you would be interested in is what is the kind of punishment that you can get for a person who has defamed you if you take up criminal proceedings. The answer is it can be for a term of 2 years or with fine or with both, and nowadays also with community service. Now, another very important aspect which I'm sure many readers would be interested in is that if I have the right to freedom of speech, why is my speech deemed to be defamatory? Now, please understand that with every right, there is always a restriction, and that restriction is what is known as a reasonable restriction. So even if Article 19(1)(a) of the Indian Constitution guarantees you the right to freedom of speech and expression, it is subject to reasonable restrictions, and these restrictions include a restriction not to defame a third party. Now let us discuss some case laws that is relevant for defamation. There is a case that has been decided by the Kolkata High Court which says that you can file both a civil and a criminal defamation simultaneously. While you get the remedy for one under the IPC, which is now the BNS, you will get the other remedy under the civil laws, which is monetary in nature, by virtue of the damages that will be given to you by the court. This has been reported in a case called Atul Kumar Pandey versus Kumar Avinash, a 2020 judgment. Another very important judgment that came out very recently, Arvind Kejriwal versus State, 2024. In this particular case, Arvind Kejriwal, the then Chief Minister of Delhi, had retweeted a post published by a blogger in 2018. This post was defamatory in nature. Hence, the person filed a case of defamation against Arvind Kejriwal and summons were issued to him. He challenged the summons by approaching the Delhi High Court. The Delhi High Court was of the view that since he was the Chief Minister and had a huge following, his reposting a tweet which was defamatory would amount to defamation. However, the Supreme Court was of another view. The Supreme Court of India felt that just because you had retweeted a statement made by some third party does not mean that you yourself are guilty of defamation. Dear viewers, we have given you a capsule on the law of defamation. This is very brief and it is just a legal tip. If you want any advice on something which is deemed to be defamation, you will have to approach a lawyer to get the correct advice. If you have found this video useful, please like, share and subscribe so that we can reach many, many more people in the country and help them to understand what the basic law is all about. With this, I would say thank you till we meet next week with a new episode.